on Politics. Pilip versus Suozzi, replacing Santos. Presented by AARP New York. Tonight, a PIX 11 political event. A congressman's historic expulsion after being caught in a web of lies leaves hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers without representation. And a key House seat up for grabs. Democrats turning to a familiar face, hopeful they can turn the district blue once again.
Let's work together to solve the problems that the people face.
While Republicans do the opposite, tapping a first-time congressional candidate who they see as the embodiment of the American dream, as they try to protect their slim majority in D.C.
The future of our nation is at stake in this race.
Tonight, hear from Pilip and Suozzi, their plans and promises, and where they stand on the issues that matter to you. With early voting set to begin in just 4 days. PIX on Politics presents Pilip versus Suozzi, replacing Santos.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of PIX on Politics, everybody. I'm Dan Manarino. And tonight, you will hear directly from the candidates vying for the seat left vacant after the historic expulsion of George Santos.
2/3 voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted.
Santos's congressional tenure was brief, yet chock full of controversy, culminating with his removal from the House. The allegations of lies began before he was even sworn in, as questions surfaced about his education, his work experience, and his finances. And now the former congressman facing 23 criminal charges, including wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and lying to Congress. But the tipping point was the release of a scathing House Ethics Committee report, which found that he, quote, blatantly stole from his campaign, end quote. And while Santos has a long legal road ahead of him, his former constituents looking towards their future representation. Will they go with a familiar face? And that's Democrat Suozzi, who represented the district for years before stepping down to run for governor of New York. Or will a conservative trend continue with the election of Republican Pilip, a newcomer to the national scene? Our polling showing Suozzi has the edge right now. He leads Pilip 48 to 37% among likely voters. Now, I had the chance to speak with both candidates. We gave them equal time, tackled the same topics, addressing the issues that we know are most important to you. And we know that because we asked you. In PIX 11 and Emerson College polling, take a look right here. Voters said the top 3 issues driving them to the polls are immigration, economy, and crime. And these are issues where Republicans traditionally fare well. And the party hopes that will continue with Pilip. Pilip currently serves as a Nassau County legislator. Born in Ethiopia, she moved to Israel as a refugee as a child and served in the Israeli Defense Force. And though she's been elected twice as a Republican, Pilip has been a registered Democrat since 2012. I ask about that and much more in my sit-down with Republican congressional candidate Pilip. And Ms. Pilip, thank you for being here and being part of this forum tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to begin with how we ended up at this very moment with this special election, right? What made you want to jump into this race? Was it you who said, I want to be a congresswoman, or was it the Republican Party who called you and said, Ms. Pilip, we think you'd be the best candidate?
So, first of all, it was me who decided to run. As you know my story. I was born in Ethiopia, grew up in Israel, and came to this country about 17 years ago. This country has been a great country for me and my husband, who immigrated from Ukraine. We love this country, but the country that I got to know 17 years ago is not the same country. The extreme policies of President Biden and the squad members really taking our country to the wrong direction. And I don't like that, because as a mother of 7 children, I want the same future for my kids. That's why I decided to run for Congress.
Okay, so let's begin with some of the top issues amongst your constituents that we polled, right? Immigration and the migrant crisis were the top of our poll. So you described the border as open. What needs to be done at the border at this point in time right now?
You're absolutely correct. The top issue, the major issue that's really bothering the district, the migrant, illegal immigrants. Since President Biden took place, together with Suozzi when he was in majority, they opened the border. And we have millions coming to this country, illegal We don't know if they are criminals. We don't know if they are terrorists. Unvetted migrants coming in, and it's really, we are in a serious issue. We don't have no plan, no place for them. And this is a big concern for every American. How come we got to this point?
So what does need to be done then at the border?
We have to secure the border as soon as possible.
But securing the border is a rather broad term, right? So what exactly does that look like?
I mean, we need to start to build the wall. And we need to hire more border control agents to protect our border. And we also need to take some technology out there that can help the border agent to do a better job and control the unvetted migrants coming from the border. And we also need to defund organizations that are receiving tax dollars to encourage illegal immigrants coming through the border.
So your solution is to continue the wall that was being built by the former president?
Absolutely. And also, we need to tighten the asylum seeker standards. Right now, everybody claims they are asylum seekers. We need to know how real that is.
Yeah, you said you wanted to simplify the immigration process, but what does simplify mean?
Simplify means, first, but listen, I am an immigrant, as I said. My husband is an immigrant. I want immigrants to come to this country. I want them to live the American dream the way I live the American dream, but it has to be done correctly. We need to reward people coming to this country in the right way, and we have to streamline the immigration process. Right now, the immigration process is absolutely broken. That's not right. That's not the way we're supposed to do it.
The immigration process, does it include, under your plan, a path to citizenship?
Definitely. Definitely. But we need to encourage to come to this country in the right way, in the legal way. And then, you know what, as a country who is willing to welcome new immigrants, we need to have a plan in place. Because remember, those people coming here to live the American dream is not fair for the migrant. You know, I did it twice. I know what stakes. Suozzi doesn't have a clue. He never immigrated. He doesn't know what stakes. So for him, it's politics. We're talking about people's life. How you giving a false hope for migrants to leave their home, walk miles and miles and put their life in harm's way, and then bringing them here and even allow them to sleep in tent cities? How you will do something like this?
In the meantime, migrants are here, and the Queens part of your district is already housing some of those migrants. Should Nassau County house some of them as well?
Listen, I stood with our county executive, with our county executive, Bruce Blakeman, when Governor Hochul wanted to send unvetted immigrants to Nassau County, and we said no. No, because you have to think about this way before you created this problem. Let's think about this for a second. When Biden decided to open the southern border, Suozzi, he was in the majority, they all decided to open the border without any plan. So, I mean, they're responsible for this mess we are seeing in our borders right now. And absolutely a career politician like Suozzi is not capable to fix the issue. He created this issue. He broke the system. So you're right. In my district right now, Creedmoor, I made a resident over there. We have about 1,000 male migrants living in the tent. And a lot of the residents, they are so worried about this because across that tent city, there is a playground. People wish to take their kids to the playground. They don't feel comfortable taking them because those migrants asking money, they're using alcohol, they're using drugs. It's become a place not friendly for the little children. And I don't blame the American people. Nobody asked them if they would like to have the migrants coming there.
But in the meantime, I know you hear what you're saying about Creedmoor, but the migrants are here. So what are you saying you do with the ones who are already here? I
can tell you one thing. First of all, we need to really secure the border. How we can even talk about fixing what's happening here before we shutting down the border and closing the border. Once we do that, then we have to come up with a plan, what we should do with the crisis that President Biden, Suozzi created.
You've done so. You've mentioned your opponent numerous times, and I want to play a clip from a recent press conference of you as well, where you mentioned your opponent about this very issue.
Thanks to Biden-Suozzi open border policy, millions of migrants have crossed the southern border, and 200,000 have arrived to New York. He created this problem. He supported President Biden 100% of the time.
Ms. Pilip, aside from supporting the President Biden, how has your opponent in the race specifically contributed to the border crisis, besides supporting the president?
He was there in majority. He He had the opportunity to stay up for that. He decided to open the border. You know, I want to talk about Sam Suozzi for a second because he has history. It's not the first time he did it. When he was the mayor in Glen Cove, he was the first one to open the East Coast to migrants, okay? And we also know when he was a county executive in Nassau County, he kicked ICE and he bragged about this. We also know in Congress he has history of funding sanctuary cities. And then he also made very difficult for law enforcement even to stop and take a migrant that's suspected to be part of gang members who were committing crime. So when you really look at Sam Suozzi, you see the history from a mayor in Glen Cove to a county executive, as a person who was in Congress for 6 years, who was there, who decided to open the border, and to now. The issues we are seeing, again, go back to Sam Suozzi, Joe Biden. They created this mess.
Okay, I want to talk about what's happening overseas right now in real time. Over the weekend, a drone strike killed 3 American soldiers in Jordan. It was heartbreaking. President Biden says this has links to Iran and that the U.S. shall respond. Should that response include a direct attack on Iran?
I can tell you this, you know, again, well, let's go back. Since Biden took place, a lot of things happening. Russia invaded Ukraine. Hamas attacked viciously Israel on October 7th. Now we have this issue that we lost 3 American soldiers and over 30 got injured. When you are weak and you are signaling a weakness, this is exactly what's happening. And Iran is responsible for all the mess that's taking place right now in the Middle East, from the attack of Hamas on October 7 to what we are seeing lately in the last 3 months. We have to hold Iran accountable.
So should the U.S.
And Biden fell doing this.
Should the U.S. response include a direct attack on Iran then?
Listen, it's something we need to think about deeply. We have to bring the international community to us, and we have to hold, again, Iran responsible for what they have been doing.
But what does that look like? What does holding Iran responsible look like?
You know, think about this. The last 3 years, you know, nobody really checking what's going on in Iran. The fact that we all know Iran would like to gain nuclear weapon, Iran would like to eliminate Israel, and down the line, United States. And what has been done the last year under President Biden? Nothing. That's the reason you see all the mess. Again, we're going back to the fact that we weren't present in the international level. All the issues we are seeing around it is because a weak president we are having right now, which is President Biden.
Do you support U.S. ground troops remaining in the region after the attack?
They should be there, absolutely. We need to control the situation. If we are out, things are going to get out of control.
You know, you mentioned foreign aid earlier, so I want to talk about that right now, because Congress, as you know, working on a deal that includes immigration reform and border control, 2 important issues, combined with foreign aid. Now, our polling shows 60% of voters in your district support aid to Israel, 51% support aid to Ukraine. But should the aid to Israel and Ukraine depend on a border deal?
I don't think so. The way I see it, I would like to separate the 3 deals, okay? Because Israel right now under attack. Since October 7, Israel is going through a tough time. We're talking about hostages still with Hamas hands. 6 of them is American citizens. I think people are forgetting the fact that we're talking about American citizens still with Hamas, and we have to bring them home. So we need to support Israel now without any condition. We need to send the aid to Israel. At the same time, when it comes to Ukraine, almost 2 years since we start to help Ukraine, which is good. I think we should support them with the military, and we should also send money. However, right now, is we would like to know how that money was spent so far. Is a legit question that we need to get an answer and evaluate that answer and support Ukraine as well. But when it comes to the border, a separate package, we need to secure our border. This is our obligation for the American people. We have been elected by the American people, and our job is to protect our country, United States of America.
So you would like 3 separate deals, but how long should Congress continue to write checks for the allies in these conflicts? Do you see a cap on the aid?
Listen, They are our allied nations. I absolutely believe strong Israel is strong. United States supporting Israel is our American interest, and we need to send our money. And every time, of course, we need to evaluate this. But again, Israel got attacked by a terrorist organization that hate Israel and hate United States. So the support of Israel should not be in any condition. We need to support Israel right now.
So no cap.
No cap right now.
Okay, I want to move to some questions about you and your personal history. You registered as a Democrat in 2012, but were elected as a Republican. What about the Democratic Party were you aligned with in 2012 that you are not aligned with today?
As I said, you know, when I came to this country, I registered as a Democrat. Many immigrants will do that. But very soon I realized the Republican Party shares my values, and the Democratic Party really left me. The extreme policies out there is really hurting the American people. It is a big problem. Therefore, I decided to run as a Republican. The Republican Party is the one that would like to protect our borders. As a mother of 7 children, I care about the future of this country. I know the amount of drugs coming from the border is unreal. The daily fentanyl killing our children. Every mother will be concerned about this. The Republican Party would like to secure our borders. The Republican Party is all about law enforcement. I support law enforcement. My opponent defund the police. He's supporting the defund the police movement. This is unreal. The police become bad guys, and that's not the way we're supposed to be. Again,
We're going to talk about law enforcement in just a few minutes,
okay.
But I want to stick with you for a second, because you told the Jewish press, quote, being a Democrat is just a piece of paper and I can switch at any time, end quote. Those were your words. So
yes.
If that is the case, are you going to switch?
I will. After the election, I could not do that right now. It's a legal, technical issue, and I'm in the middle of race. Once it's done, I will. And I'm very proud. Even if you see my voting record as a county legislator, you can see I'm all about cutting taxes. I'm all about supporting law enforcement. I'm all about supporting small businesses and improving an economy. At the end of the day, when somebody would like to check you, you should go on the record how I vote. That should be the indication.
You're bringing up how you vote, so let's go there for a second and talk about your personal voting record. According to the New York Post, you did not vote in at least 6 elections since registering to vote in 2012. However, our polling that we did in your district shows 72% of voters in your district believe it is very important for their candidate to participate in elections. So here's a chance for you, Ms. Pilip, to explain why you didn't come out to vote in previous local elections where local elections really matter.
I absolutely agreed. I started to be involved in politics more and more, understand the right of voting. You know, you have to remember, I grew up in Ethiopia, voting culturally wasn't there. And a lot of immigrants, coming from Iran and other countries, they didn't have the opportunity of voting. And something I learned as American. And slowly, I start to be more involved, more engaged. Right now, I'm committed to educate my children. And even I'm going around and educating people how important is voting. I can tell you, since I took place 3 years ago, since I started to be involved, I encouraged a lot of people. And I'm very proud. A lot of young people, a lot of elderly that never even voted, never in their lives. I was there to educate them and telling them, you know what? Sometimes when you're giving too much power for others or trust, that's what got us to where we are right now. Our country going to the wrong direction. And I'm encouraging and I'm committed to indicate people, empower people, yes, to exercise your right of voting.
Understood. And you've pledged, speaking of elections, to support the Republican presidential nominee, whoever that is.
Yes.
And as of right now, Donald Trump really is on the path to becoming the Republican nominee. So will you say right here tonight that you will support Donald Trump if he is the nominee and vote for him?
Here is the thing. As I said, still the primaries keep going. We have 2 candidates right now. They're both great. And once we know who's going to be the Republican nominee, absolutely I will support. If it's going to be Trump, I will support him.
Even if he's convicted of a crime at some point between now and the November election?
Nobody is above the law. If he convicted to crime, he cannot representing us. But unless we're going to see that right now, if he's the candidate, I will support him. He was a great candidate, a great president. He did great things for America. He improved our economy. He brought a lot of peace process in Middle East. He was very strong in the international level. I can tell you one thing I didn't agree with him. He took away the SALT deduction from New Yorkers. When I go to Congress, I will work very hard with him, if he's going to be the president, to bring back SALT deduction.
We're going to get to SALT, but just so I'm
New York.
Just so I'm clear, if he is convicted of a crime, you will not support him?
I'm not going to support, nobody's above the law.
Okay, understood. But
Right now, he's going through the process. We have to give him the opportunity to prove us he's innocent.
I want to talk about taxes because that is a big issue for your district, right? And part of the tax plan, you just mentioned it, was SALT, and that is something that it really hurt Long Islanders in the long run, end up paying more. So would you support an economic package if it didn't bring back those deductions?
No, listen, when I go to Congress, and I made it very clear for my Long Island delegation, that when I go to Congress, I will bring SALT deduction to New Yorkers. It was helping a lot of families, and they deserve that. We need to make New York more affordable, and I will work very hard. My opponent promised he would bring SALT back then when he was in Congress. He failed. I'm going to go there. I'm not just going to, I'm not this typical politician who promise, very good by talking, but never deliver. I am a person of action, and I have a proven record as a county legislator. When I promise, I deliver. I will work very hard to turn New York to a more affordable state, the state we love, the state we would like to work and enjoy quality of life.
If you vote to reinstall SALT, how do you think the lost revenue should be made up?
What do you mean specifically?
There was a ton of revenue that came into the city because of the taxes that were paid because of SALT. So how should that come? If SALT is brought back, obviously the city is going to need to pay more somewhere. How is that revenue being made?
First of all, we need to cut out of control spending. We have to watch and manage our federal budgets the way we're going to manage our home, more in a responsible way. If there is a place that is a waste, we need to cut this. And I think bringing SALT will help middle-class families to make sure they can afford. Think about what's happening right now, the inflation. I mean, everybody's feeling this. When you go to grocery, you are feeling it. It's everything very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. The cost of electricity, 24% up since Biden took place. And the rent is very high. It's just very, groceries over 20%. It's very difficult for New Yorkers right now. And they don't want to leave. They don't want to go to different states. They would like to stay here. People love New York. Yeah. But they made it so impossible for us.
And people look towards Congress then to keep the economy running, right? So Congress continues, though, to kick the budget can down the road. So with two potential shutdown deadlines now set for early March, as you may know. So if elected, you would be a member of Congress for those really important votes here. So would you vote on a continuing resolution instead of working with other members of Congress to get these long-term budget deals passed?
I believe once I'm going to go to Congress, we will be able to come up with a good deal that works for the American people. Right now, they just passed a continue of legislation, but we need to come up with a deal. We need to come up with a budget that makes sense and that is going to help us to improve our economy and lower inflation and lower interest rate.
Okay, you brought up crime earlier, so let's go there, right? It's a big topic, and in a recent interview with New York One, you said you favored an assault weapons ban, which is a break from many Republicans in your party. So would you reach across the aisle then and co-sponsor legislation that would bring back the assault weapons ban?
Here's the thing, as you know, Second Amendment gives the right for the American people to own bear arms, okay? We can't take that away. I am not going to support automatic assault weapon. That's not the one we need. I can tell you, as a person who served in the Israeli army for 1 year and 9 months in the paratrooper brigade, I was in charge of weapons. Okay, we need. I know how important to have those guns to self-defense. But at the same time, I also know how dangerous they can be. What I would like to see that the federal government and with the local government to collaborate and to work together to make sure that we all follow in the regulation that's out there, whether it's background check, whether it's waiting period, whether it's training that's needed, we need to follow the rules and the regulation. We have them for a reason, and we have to make sure that guns don't get in the wrong hands of people with mental issue, criminals, and terrorists. And we have to make sure that we are really taking the illegal weapons that is in the streets right now.
I want to focus on a big topic here, and that is abortion. Another topic which is in your 10-point plan, right? Yeah. Reproductive rights. You have said you do not support a federal ban on abortion or funding cuts for reproductive care. Can you explain why you've taken that position?
It's a very important question, and I'm very happy you're asking this because, unfortunately, Suozzi and his party leaders have been lying about me. I was on national TV when I told exactly where I'm standing when it comes to abortion, and I'm happy to tell you that here. You know, as a mother of 7 children, okay, as a woman, I think abortion is a personal decision, is a personal choice. Every woman should make that decision. I decided to have 7 children. I made that decision. I am not going to force my own beliefs, okay, my own faith to any woman. Therefore, I'm not going to support national abortion ban, and I'm not going to risk women health care.
So you're a no vote on a national abortion
absolutely
ban?
Not, and I made it so clear. But again, Tom Suozzi and his political leaders lying. Tom Suozzi will tell the mother of 7 children what's women's right. Tom Suozzi will tell me what's pregnancy. He ever was pregnant? I carried, 7 children. I took that risk. I know what is to be in that risk. In the last pregnancy, I gave birth for twin girls. It was a high risk. And it was a time I felt like, oh my God, I'm about to lose my life. I understand women's rights. I understand what pregnancy is about. I understand, what women need. Tom Suozzi doesn't have a clue. No Tom Suozzi and any woman will tell me what's women's right. I understand better. And I know every woman right now, every mother who's listening to this will understand. I am telling the truth.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that position here.
Of course, thank you.
I want to talk about your previous support for George Santos, which is, again, why we're in this special election to begin with. Many Republicans in your district felt deceived by Mr. Santos and embarrassed. Members of the district, members of the party. How do you, as the Republican candidate, restore the trust that was lost in the district?
Unfortunately, and as you know, George Santos lied to all of us. We didn't know nothing about him. He told us everything that he said is true. We believed him. As soon as we found out that he was lying, I was one of the first one who told him that he has to resign, And we made it clear. Since then, we've never been in touch. The Republican Party, the elected official, not working with him at all. I didn't even speak with him since then. But the people in the 3rd Congressional District understand. It's something that we don't have control. Unfortunately, I don't have a control of that. But they understand this election is not even about Santos. He lied. This is about the future of this country. It's about bringing common sense government. And Tom Suozzi is the one who created a lot of issues, and I'm there to fix it. And it's not about really George Santos.
Giving you and Mr. Suozzi equal time, so we are out of time. But Ms. Pilip,
really?
Appreciate you being part of this important forum tonight. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, and up next, hear from Mazi Pilip's opponent, Tom Suozzi, the former congressman looking to win back his seat after stepping down 2 years ago to run for governor. How the Democrat plans to convince an increasingly conservative district that he is the right fit to represent them in Congress.
Pilip left taking no questions.
Mazi left before taking any questions.
Mazi Pilip. She dodges, ducks, and hides. But one thing she isn't hiding, her opposition to abortion. Pilip's running on a party platform that calls for a ban on abortion.
I am pro-life. Me, Mazi Manasa Pilip. I am pro-life.
And Mazi's backers are pushing for a national abortion ban. No exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother. Mazi Pilip. Too extreme for New York. HMP is responsible for the content of this ad.
Taking care of Mom here at home hasn't been easy. We've had to make a lot of changes.
I had to quit my job. She's become her entire life.
We'd do anything to keep Mom here at home, but it really feels like we're on our own.
There are a lot of families that are doing what we're doing for their loved ones. But we could all use support. We could all use help.
Congress, family caregivers need your help.
You've been hearing a lot of nonsense blaming Tom Suozzi for the migrant problem. Really?
As the left pushes to abolish ICE, here now is one of the few Democrats who voted to support this vital agency.
ICE is an important government agency. They have an important job to do in this country, securing our border. I support strong border security.
Tom Suozzi will work with both parties to close illegal immigration routes, but open paths to citizenship for those who follow the rules.
And anything else you might hear is garbage. I'm Tom Suozzi, and I approve this message.
Illegal immigrants arriving by the busload. Why? Because Tom Suozzi repeatedly weakened America's borders. Suozzi supported allowing illegal immigrants charged with violent crimes to be released back into our community. He even bragged about getting rid of immigration enforcement.
When I was county executive in Nassau County, I kicked ICE out of Nassau County.
Tom Suozzi helped create our immigration crisis. In Congress, he'll make it worse. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Taking care of Mom here at home hasn't been easy. We've had to make a lot of changes.
I had to quit my job. She's become our entire life.
We'd do anything to keep Mom here at home, but it really feels like we're on our own.
There are a lot of families that are doing what we're doing for their loved ones. But we could all use support. We could all use help.
Congress, family caregivers need your help.
You're watching PIX on Politics. Pilip versus Suozzi, replacing Santos.
And welcome back, everybody. When Congress expelled George Santos and his seat became up for grabs, Democrats turned to a familiar face in the hopes of turning the seat they lost in 2022 back to blue. Tom Suozzi represented New York's 3rd District in Congress from 2017 to 2023. He stepped down to make a run for governor, losing to Kathy Hochul in the primary. And prior to Congress, Mr. Suozzi was the Nassau County executive and mayor of Glen Cove. But the longtime elected official has an uphill battle ahead of him in an increasingly conservative district now. Check out my conversation with Tom Suozzi. Mr. Suozzi, thank you for being here and being part of this forum.
Hey, Dan, thanks so much for having me. I wish it could have been a debate, but my opponent wouldn't agree to the debate. I would do a debate anytime.
Well, let's talk about the issues and the key issues for your constituents right now. And I want to talk about really how we ended up at this very moment with the special election, right? What made you want to jump into this race? Was it you wanted the old seat back, or was it the Democratic Party that called you and said, hey, Mr. Suozzi, we think you'd be the best choice for the candidate for this race?
Yeah, I was really figured I was out of politics. I was the mayor of my hometown for 8 years. I was the county executive of Nassau County for 8 years. I was in Congress for 6 years. And I ran for governor, and I got my ass kicked. And I thought I was out of politics altogether. And I started getting a lot of calls because George Santos became the biggest story in America. And they said, we'd really like you to run again. And that hasn't happened to me in my career. I'm usually fighting with my colleagues in the Democratic Party, especially on the far left. And this is the first time that the party has actually said, we want you to run.
So you got those phone calls. What made you say yes?
Our country's in a lot of trouble. The division is out of control. And as I said to my wife, I said, honey, do you think we should do this? And she said, the small me doesn't want you to run, but the big me knows it's the right thing to do. Our country's in a lot of trouble. I have a great experience in politics. I was trained as a lawyer and a CPA. I've accomplished a lot of good things. I know how government works and how politics works. And I think I can help heal some of the division, especially if I win this race, because my whole campaign message has been, let's work across party lines to get things done to actually help people. And that's with the Democrats understanding that that's my message, and I'm not changing it.
You're talking about reaching across party lines, and I want to begin with a topic that is really top of mind to so many and would really require both parties, and that is immigration and the migrant crisis. So do you think that the border right now needs to be closed, at least temporarily, to stop the flow of migrants coming into the U.S.?
I do. And I think that, just as you said, we need a bipartisan solution. We've had this border crisis for 35 years in America. It's worse now than ever, but it's been 35 years since we've had a bipartisan agreement on the border. And for the first time in a long time, you've got the Senate negotiating, Democrats and Republicans, to find a compromise. The president is saying, I'm willing to make a lot of concessions because he wants to get the deal done for politics, for government, but also because he wants to try and fund Ukraine and Israel. So we have a unique opportunity to solve this on a bipartisan basis. Unfortunately, former President Trump is saying, I don't want you to do the deal. I don't want to give Biden a victory. And as Mitt Romney has said, that's appalling, because people want us to solve the problems. They're sick of us all attacking each other, fighting each other. Let's solve the problems people are concerned about. And this is an issue, immigration, that people are really concerned about.
I'm going to talk about that foreign aid deal in just a moment, but I do want to talk about the border for a second. You're saying temporarily close it, but a lot of folks also say secure the border. What exactly does secure the border look like?
Again, that has to be a bipartisan compromise. I wrote an op-ed piece with Peter King, who's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, where we said, okay, let's do 3 things. Secure the border, treat people like human beings, and pay for it. And that included $2,000 fees for certain people that would generate $10 billion. Give half to the Democrats and half to the Republicans. The Republicans, you want to build a wall? Go build a wall. That's fine. Democrats, you want to get more immigration judges? You want to invest in radar? You want to invest in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, where most of the immigrants are coming from because their lives are so miserable in those countries? Let's make a deal. It can't be my way or the highway. People have got to work together to solve these problems, and a bipartisan compromise is the only way to move forward.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is facing increased scrutiny from House Republicans. Impeachment articles even being talked about just this past weekend. So it's clear what they think about how he's doing. But how do you think Secretary Mayorkas is handling? If you had to give him a letter grade, what would you give him?
I wouldn't even give him a grade. Let's give him a B. I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's whoever the secretary of the department is in the cabinet has to follow the directions of the administration. So you spend your political time attacking Mayorkas to kick him out, you're just going to replace him with somebody else from the administration. So that's really a political witch hunt that's been going on. There's been no member of the cabinet tried to be impeached for 150 years. And last time they did it, it failed. As some Republicans have said, it doesn't make sense to even pursue this. You want to fix the border? You're not going to fix it by impeaching the secretary. You're going to fix it by doing bipartisan legislation to finally fix it. The president has said he'll sign the bill and he'll shut the border down immediately. Let's make a deal. Let's get it done.
But that's now. So how do you think the president has handled it up until this point?
I don't think the president has made enough focus on it. He did a proposal when he first got into the presidency. It was ignored by everybody. For the past 3 months, we've been trying to push this. He's been trying to push this bipartisan deal. I said to the New York Times over the summer, before I was even a candidate, I wasn't even talking to the press from January till October when I announced I was running, but I did give one quote to the New York Times. I said, President Biden should do what President Clinton did. Take the issue they're attacking you on, propose a bipartisan solution, a compromise, a moderate solution, and if the Republicans go along with it, we can finally move forward for the first time in 35 years and make the world a better place. If they don't go along with it, you could say, you are just playing politics, trying to weaponize this. You don't really want to solve it. You just want to use it for political purposes. That's kind of what's happening right now, because there's a bipartisan deal in the United States Senate. The president's willing to go along with it. The Democrats in the House are willing to go along with it. But the Republicans are listening to former President Trump and saying, I don't want Biden to have a victory.
I want to talk about real-time events that took place over this past weekend. A drone strike killing 3 American soldiers in Jordan. President Biden says that this has links to Iran and that the U.S. shall respond. Should the response include a direct attack on Iran?
You know, that's up to the military experts and to the intelligence community. But the bottom line is Iran is a bad actor. And they are teamed up with Russia. And they are teamed up with the Chinese Communist Party. And they're all working together. All the things that are happening are linked to each other. Ukraine, Putin going into Ukraine, Hamas attacking Israel with support from Iran, the Houthis attacking the shipping lanes, the attacks coming from Hezbollah into Israel, the attacks that just took place in Syria, they're all linked together. And the president and his administration are trying to negotiate with the rest of the Western world, Europe, and with the Sunnis in the Arab states to stand together to develop a multilateral deal to try and address the post-Israel Palestinian world. That's a way to freeze Iran, to really punish Iran, to really freeze them out by getting the rest of the Arab states to team up against them, because they don't like them either. So it's a very complicated thing. It can't be solved with sound. Let me just say this one thing, Dan. Yeah. Every problem we face in the country and in the world is complicated. Nothing is simple. And to solve problems, you can't solve them in an environment of fear and anger with everybody just attacking each other. You need people of goodwill who are willing to sit down across the table from each other and say, I disagree with you on this, I disagree with you on that, but let's try and find out what we can agree upon. And that's one of those complicated issues, really complicated issues. We have to show Iran that they can't mess with us because we know it's them that's behind this. But we also don't want to conflagrate it into something that ruins the possibility of having a deal with the Arab states like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and others to deal with the whole Middle East situation.
Do you support U.S. ground troops remaining in the region?
Yes.
Okay.
We have to stop the terrorists. I mean, the terrorists have to be stopped.
I would talk about foreign aid for a moment, because that is a complicated issue. And right now, Congress is working on a deal that includes immigration reform and border control, but that is combined with foreign aid, right? So our polling in your district showing 60% of voters support aid to Israel, 51% support aid to Ukraine. But should the aid to Israel and Ukraine depend on a border deal?
I don't think it should. I don't think there should be any conditions on the aid to Israel. I don't think there should be any conditions on the aid to Ukraine. But the Republicans have said they want to make it part of a deal. They wanted to condition the Israel aid on a cut to the IRS, which makes no sense. I don't think we should be conditioning aid to Israel under any circumstances. But that's what they're saying they want. So everybody's saying, okay, we're all locked in this battle. We want it all conditioned. We want it to be border security, Israel and Ukraine. That's the only way we do it. So they're negotiating this deal. They're close to getting a deal. And President Trump is saying, former President Trump is saying, I don't want to give Biden a victory. That's just what's wrong with our country. Everybody's just playing these political games for political advantage instead of actually this is real business. This is serious life issues. The border is serious business. Israel is really serious business. Ukraine is really serious business. This is no time for game playing.
A timeline, though. How long should Congress continue to write checks for our allies in those conflicts? Is there a cap to the checks that you're writing?
Very, very difficult answer to give, but I don't think there should be a cap because we can't let Putin think that it's okay to invade the country next door and try and annex it the way Hitler tried to do, and then try and annex the country after that. I don't think we can say, Hamas, there's a timeline or a dollar cap. If you wait us out, we'll run out of money so that we can stop you from your terrorist activities. We don't want to spend money on these endless wars or endless battles. We don't want to be engaged in them forever, but we have to beat the bad actors.
In an interview with Politico, I want to read you back your own words here. You said, quote, another pro-Israel Republican doesn't add anything to the equation. You need strong, outspoken pro-Israel Democrats, end quote. So how can you better support Israel than your opponent, who certainly has strong ties to Israel? She served in the Israeli Defense Forces and really has the majority of her party on that issue.
There's no question about that. And right now, everybody who believes in a bipartisan support for the U.S.-Israel relationship has to be concerned about who's going to be in power in America a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If you want to keep it bipartisan, we don't need more Republicans, quite frankly. We need strong, outspoken pro-Israel Democrats like myself who will stand up to the far left that are trying to undermine our relationship with Israel, who will publicly speak out and say, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and others, you're wrong. And you've got to stop what you're doing because this is an important relationship for us.
This is a big year, 2024, big election year, right? And PIX11's poll not really in President Biden's favor. And I want to show you some of the numbers here. Zeroing into your district, 33% of those polled said they approve of the job that the president is doing. Now, you were just asked this past weekend if you'd seek the president endorsement, and you said no. So this is really about a balance of power in the House, right? And putting the president one step closer to passing key components of his agenda. You keep talking about some of those components. Wouldn't this be the time to have him come and support your campaign?
Well, let me just say very clearly that former President Trump's numbers are just as bad. They're both very, very unpopular in my district. People are sick and tired of the politics. They're not happy with either of the two candidates at the presidential level. And I didn't say I didn't seek the president's endorsement. I said I don't expect him to be campaigning with me in the district. The bottom line is that this is a local race. This is Suozzi versus Mazi. Suozzi's willing to debate and show up and talk to the people and be present. Mazi is not willing to debate. She's hiding. She's running on Republican talk points and not with any specific ideas. I've got specific ideas on issues related to immigration, related to the state and local tax deduction, related to climate change, related to Israel, related to Ukraine. Any issue you talk about, I'll give you all the specifics. I've been doing town hall meetings. I've been doing public appearances. I've been doing press conferences. She is just using Republican talk points, going to Republican rallies, and not talking to the people directly. So people have got to make a choice in this campaign between the two candidates. The choice is between Mazi versus Suozzi, someone with experience who's gotten a lot done in his political and governmental life to serve the people, and someone who's a relative newcomer who won't tell us in this post-George Santos world what she really stands for. Right. She's hiding from debates. She's had problems with her finances, according to Newsday and the New York Times. And she won't tell us her specific positions on issues like choice, for example. She says she's pro-life, and I'm pro-choice.
I will be asking her about those very issues, but let's talk to you about the economy. And I want to zero in on inflation, which is trending downwards, which is certainly good news. But grocery store prices, that is what people really feel, right? And those are up 13% just in the last 2 years. So what could you do in Congress to cut inflation where it certainly really hits home?
Well, the main issue for me related to the cost of living is the state and local tax deduction. This is a tremendous body blow when President Trump and the Republicans capped the state and local tax deduction at $10,000 a year. It used to be for 100 years, you could deduct your state income taxes and your local property taxes from your gross income, so you wouldn't be taxed on the taxes you've already paid.
Talking about SALT.
SALT. I passed a fix on SALT 3 times in the United States Congress. I couldn't get it through the Senate, and of course the president didn't have an opportunity to sign it because it wasn't passed by the Senate. My opponent says she's in favor of the same thing I'm in favor of, and the Republicans on Long Island are saying they're in favor of restoring SALT. How come they haven't passed it through the House? There's a bill coming up this week, a tax bill. Why don't they get a restoration of the SALT passed through the House? They say, Suozzi, you didn't get it done. I did it 3 times in the House of Representatives. They haven't done it once. They're in the majority. Pass it. If you really believe that we need to restore SALT, pass it in the House of Representatives. Don't just rely on Republican talk points like my opponent in this race is. Give us specifics how you're going to build a coalition to get this done the way I did.
And that's on SALT. So let me talk about taxes for a second, because New York 3, as you know, the fourth wealthiest district in the country, 30%.
I don't think we're 4th wealthy. I think we're at number 11 now under the new redistricting. The old one was the 4th, but whatever. Okay.
Well,
still a wealthy district.
It's a wealthy district overall. 30% making over $200,000, right? So do you support raising taxes? Is the question here on the wealthy to then support the middle class?
I would support an increase on the top rate for people who make over $400,000 a year from 37 back up to 39.6 as part of a deal to get us the state and local tax deduction back. That's the only one that I would support is for the more wealthy people. But it would have to be, which was cut, which made no sense to cut. It wasn't needed. Nobody was asking for it when they did that tax bill. But it really was a body blow to New York State when they gave us the cap on the state and local tax deduction. My priority is to get the state and local tax deduction back.
Okay. Congress continues to kick the budget can down the road. I feel like almost every other couple of months we're talking about a potential government shutdown. So if you won this seat, you would be a member of Congress. So would you vote on a continuing resolution instead of working with other members of Congress to get these long-term budget deals passed?
Well, I would want to do a long-term budget deal, but I would still not shut the government down under any circumstances. And I think this is what's happening in our country. People have all these concerns about the cost of living that you just mentioned. They have these concerns about the immigration crisis. They have these, we have this, remember the smoke that came down from Canada in the summer?
Wildfires,
like, what if that goes on for like 2 months? What would we do? I mean, that's happening in Canada. We can't even affect. So we have all these problems. We have these wars going on. We have Israel. We have Ukraine. We have all these. We have our kids freaking out with the internet and comparing themselves to all the other kids, and they're depressed and anxious. We have all these problems. We look to Congress and say, what are you doing? Oh, we're kicking out the speaker. We can't do a budget. We're doing continuing resolutions, as you said. We're threatening to shut the government down again. And we won't make a deal on immigration, despite the fact that there's a deal in the offing happening in the United States Senate right now. Something's wrong with our country. And people are sick and tired of people just pointing fingers at each other instead of trying to work together to find deals. Let me just say I was the vice chairman of the Problem Solvers Caucus in Congress. 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans. We met every week to try and find common ground. That's how we got a bipartisan infrastructure deal done. That's how we got the CHIPS Act done. That's how we got a lot of bipartisan deals done to get us through COVID. That's how I helped my district in so many different ways, like cleaning up the pollution in Bethpage related to the Navy Grumman plume and bringing back local money for the Long Island Sound. Those were bipartisan efforts that I worked on when I was in Congress that I'll work on again in the future.
One of the top issues for the district, of course, is crime, and it's always a kitchen table issue for so many. Your opponent has the backing of all 4 Nassau County police unions. So with crime such a top concern for voters, why don't you have those endorsements?
I think that Republicans are getting the endorsements from law enforcement in New York State these days. Now, everybody who followed the governor's race, I ran for governor of New York State. I ran the main #1 issue was public safety and fighting crime. I've always been pro-law enforcement. When I was Nassau County executive, I oversaw the 12th largest police department in the United States of America. I reduced the crime rate to the lowest crime rate it's been in its history. So I've always been pro-law enforcement. During the whole year of the summer of the George Floyd protests, I was handing out proclamations and flags to police officers who were saving people's lives. I've always been pro-law enforcement. But the endorsements, I think, happen because of the fact that the Republicans are just going with the law enforcement agencies are going with the Republicans these days. I have great relationships with the individual law enforcement, even with the PBAs, but they saw fit to endorse my opponent.
I want to talk about the big topic here of abortion. I want to play a clip of you from 2017 when you were recorded talking to constituents at a town hall. So take a listen to it.
I'm 100% committed to abortion remaining safe and legal. My I do believe, however, that we have to try and create a society where abortion is more rare.
So create a society where abortion is more rare is what you said. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, I'm, as I said in the clip, 100% committed to abortion remaining safe, legal, and accessible. And I've been endorsed by groups like Planned Parenthood and other groups, and have a 100% rating from them while in the United States Congress. But I think we should create a society where we prevent unintended pregnancies. That's the best way to reduce abortions. Contraception and education will make abortions more rare in our society, not by restricting access, as some in the Republican Party have proposed, but by making a society where people are educated and use contraception to prevent unintended pregnancies. When I was a Nassau County executive, I created homes for single mothers. So that if they had a pregnancy and they were by themselves, they could still move forward with their pregnancy if they chose to do so. So I think that and I also created a program to promote adoption services. So I'm 100% committed to abortion remaining safe, legal, and accessible, but we need to create a society where we prevent unintended pregnancies and support women during these difficult times.
Would you support any limits to abortion?
You have to give me specific things that you would want me to talk about.
I mean, the floor is yours when you talk about limits to abortion overall. There's some talking points around the Republicans about what exactly rape, incest, are there any limits?
You know, I don't like the idea of someone having an abortion in the 9th month of their pregnancy, for example. And there are circumstances, however, where women face very serious medical conditions. So we'd have to talk in real specifics about the type of limits that you'd want to talk about.
Okay, I want to move on.
I have a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood.
Understood. I want to keep the topics flowing here and move on now to congestion pricing, because here's what you had to say to PIX-11 about it when you were running for governor in 2022. And this is a big issue because a lot of your district commute. Let's talk about supporting congestion pricing right now, but people are afraid to take the subway. Let's make the subway safer, let's make people safer, and then we can implement it. Overall, subway crime is down when you look at the numbers right now. So if the trend continues, does that mean that you back congestion pricing the way it currently stands and support its implementation come the spring?
You know, I've historically thought that congestion pricing was a good idea from an academic perspective, the idea that you could limit traffic by encouraging people to take mass transit, and you could take the funds that were generated and invest it in the Long Island Railroad, invested in the subway system, invested in other mass transit ideas. The implementation is the big challenge. I don't think you should be affecting people that are making $75,000 or $100,000 a year. They shouldn't have to be burdened the same way. You shouldn't be burdened if your job requires you to go into the city every day, if you're a teacher, for example, or if you have a small business. And you have to bring things in and out of the city to your small business. So the concept of it, I do like it, and I've talked about it as far back as probably 20 years ago. But I think the implementation is what you have to be careful about, of how it affects people who go to work every day and how it affects small businesses and people that must use their car to go into the city.
I mean, they're talking about it implementing this spring. Do you support that?
Not unless it has the conditions that I'm talking about, which is to protect people whose wages are $100,000, $75,000 a year or less, not when it affects people who have to go to work every day and need a car to go to work.
Understood. You know, Mr. Suozzi, I want to talk about why we're even having this discussion right now, and that's because of the expulsion, of course, of George Santos, who you once went head-to-head with in a 2020 congressional race. Now, the New York Times reported that your campaign conducted no opposition research because you did not see Santos as a viable threat. Knowing what we know now, do you feel that that decision was the smart decision not to do opposition research, and does it change how you campaign in the future?
Well, it was absolutely the right decision in 2020. That was the middle of COVID. He was unknown. He raised less than $50,000. He had no connections to the district whatsoever, and he had no real campaign. I never even saw him in person once. I only saw him on a Zoom one time, and he was kind of an odd person. I wasn't worried about beating him, and I beat him by about 15, 20 points. So that was the right decision, because you have limited resources when you're running a campaign. What happened afterwards is plenty of blame to go around from the Republican Party for selecting him without vetting him in the first place, from the Democratic Party from not finding all the stuff they found, and the press, quite frankly, failed to do their job to investigate him and hold him accountable. The positive side of that is the press is paying more attention to people now more than ever. Parties are doing more investigations of their candidates as well. But listen, in my race, in this post-Santos world, how is it that Mazi Pilip is not showing up for debates? How is it she's not telling what her positions are on issues specific issues? How is it that she's not doing public forums where people can ask her questions, only doing Republican rallies, using Republican talk points? How in the post-Santos world can she have problems with her finances, according to the New York Times and to Newsday, with her financial disclosures? And she wouldn't agree to a debate.
Let me end on this because I'm up against the clock and I want to give you equal time. If you win this race, are you committed to then running again for a full term in November?
Yes, I am.
All right, we're going to leave it there then. Mr. Suozzi, appreciate your time and being here for this forum tonight. Good to see you.
Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, let's get some analysis of the race right now. I want to welcome PIX 11 political reporter Henry Rossoff to the roundtable and political strategist J.C. Polanco. So great to have both of you here.
Good evening.
Lively discussions with both of the candidates. So let's begin with what stood out first and foremost to you, Henry, about the candidates and what they said.
Both diving to the middle, trying to appeal to this, what we're expected to be a low voter turnout election, especially Mazi Pilip, not afraid to say she would not vote for former President Trump, or not support is the word that she used, should he be criminally convicted. Standing by the assault weapons ban, though not sponsoring legislation, and really making this passionate sort of statement as a mother that I had a personal choice to have so many children. If someone else does not want children, that's their choice.
What about Mr. Suozzi?
I think he showed that he was polished, man. This is a guy who's ran several times. He's the kind of Democrat that could win in Republican territory, kind of like that unicorn. This is a battle of unicorns. You have a Democrat in a Republican area who's doing very well and connecting with a lot of people. And then you have an Ethiopian member who, of the county legislature who is now running for Congress, former member of the IDF in Israel, and an Orthodox Jew. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's right out of central casting.
To your point, former Congressman Suozzi didn't even hesitate for a second, said, would you want to close the border temporarily? I said, yes, absolutely. We need to fix this right now. He didn't shy away from this sort of boogeyman issue for Democrats of late, which has been the immigrant crisis.
Right. This entire race is going to be decided on those three things: crime, we know; immigration, we know; and the issue with Israel and Gaza. There's no way Tom Suozzi is going to out-Israel Mazi. There's just no way that's going to happen.
He tried, though.
He tried, but it's not going to happen. So the appeal is going to be to the middle, moderate voters, the guys that were paying attention to your great questions, Dan, on taxes, congestion pricing. That's what's going to win this
These
race.
kitchen table issues. When you look at the polling right now, guys, it really is showing that Tom Suozzi has a bit of an edge with likely voters. Henry, you covered this poll really well in depth. But after tonight, hearing from both of them, do you think anything will change? This is the first time we're really hearing from Mazi Pilip in a 23-minute interview.
Yeah, and kudos to you for really getting her to give specific examples. For example, on the border crisis, what would you do? Well, not just wall, but more technology, she mentioned, and also kind of, you know, the asylum changes. So we are hearing some specifics. I'm talking to independent voters in the district. That was a concern. Not even what she would say, that she wasn't giving specifics. She gave more of those tonight. I know that that former Congressman Suozzi still chastising her for only doing one debate. At full disclosure, we wanted this to be a debate. Right, Dan?
We did want this to be. We tried very hard. But, you know, JC, when you look at this in the totality, right, it's a purple district, and either side, Democrats or Republicans, looking at how this race plays out, and especially and how that will change potentially the balance of power. So what do you see happening here?
Well, this is what I see. I see the Democrats outspending the Republicans fourfold right now. It's going to keep going up. I think this is the battle of the titans between those campaign committees out of Washington. It's going to be a bellwether to see how Democrats and Republicans are going to do in November.
Message testing, absolutely.
Absolutely. Can Suozzi win independent women with the abortion issue? That's going to be a major factor in this district. You saw they really didn't differ on much. They both support Israel. They both support immigration reform. We see it. It's going to be a battle of the titans based on how do you feel about the overturn of Roe. And then with such a low turnout, as you just mentioned, we're going to see that, I think, being a very important issue.
It will be a little tough to test the Roe messaging because we're in New York. People tend to feel kind of safe about it, but
We're going to leave it there. JC, Henry, great to have both of you on the panel for an important night with your insight. And you heard from the candidates, everybody. Now it's up to you at home to make your choice. Early voting begins this Saturday, February 3rd. Check out the times right there, okay? We'll have all of them posted on as well, pix11.com/NY-elections. Don't forget, Tuesday, February 13th is the final day to vote. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., and you can expect full coverage of the race every week. Always on PIX on Politics. You can catch that show every Sunday at 7:30 a.m., streaming anytime on PIX 11+. Hey, thank you for watching this special edition of PIX on Politics. I'm Dan Manarino. Hope you learned something tonight. Don't forget to get out and make your voice heard. Have a great night.